What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team.
I think our Jewish brothers celebrate Passover this time of year, and our Muslim brothers are celebrating Ramadan, or they're fasting during Ramadan, and then Eid is their big kind of like, Mardi Gras Easter celebration. So
Didn't
I
that
think
just
it's
happen?
I don't know. I'm not. I mean, that's not my team.
That's not-
I'm yeah. I'm more like Buffalo Bills and Roman Catholic Church. That's more my where my allegiance lie. Go Jesus, go Allen.
And before I forget, sorry to cut off your joke, Ray. Before I forget, I wanted to welcome Zach to the team. He joined last night.
It was a good one.
And Zach joined last night, and I think he's on here now. So
Right on, Zach.
Have you, brother?
Welcome, brother. Yeah, and so I think the topic of spirituality is apropos today. Regardless of what your faith is, whether you believe in God or Jesus or Allah or the universe or whatever it is, I think the way I look at it is for all of recorded and probably even pre-recorded history, man has had a spiritual life of some kind, and and so I don't think we've necessarily evolved out of the need for a spiritual life. Rob, I missed what you were telling Wes before we started. What's this about your experience with your faith this past couple of days?
Oh, well, I'm taking this class with a few friends of mine on like maintaining healthy relationships, but it's hosted at a church, and it's like a non-faith-based class. It's supposed to be like more, therapy or self-assessment, but because it's at a church, I was telling Wes, it's like the Super Bowl out there. They got all their tents up, they got all the candles going, like they're ready for
the big show.
Exactly. This is their time of year.
The big dance.
Yep. Exactly. So it was interesting to see because it is just literally everything. It's all Eastered out.
Yeah. And then we've got the Dark Sith Lord.
Yeah, that's right.
Phil joining us just for like the.
Hey, Ray, I see you're still working on your comedy, huh? When are you getting up on stage, dude?
Oh,
you're gonna go up on an open mic.
Oh, dude, I'm paying the price. He is Satan's messenger. Sorry, Ron.
Hey, dude.
One day, Phil and MSG are going to gang up on you.
Rob, just to round it up, you said Wes knows your mom, and I don't know what.
Yeah. So I was also transitioning because I was telling Wes my mom is super Catholic. I was raised super Catholic.
Awesome.
But Wes was like, "Congratulations to your mom," because he knows my mom is super Catholic. So I didn't know if that's what you were talking about too, because he came in. Yeah,
no, I was raised medium Catholic, and just at this point in my journey of sobriety and in my life and all the kind of like turmoil in my marriage and in my career and stuff, I'm trying to lean into it and see if it can be a source of strength for me. Because my spiritual life, it's very Catholic these days, but other days I lean on the universe. Other days I lean on the wisdom of the kind of like just the group, whatever team I'm on, as a kind of a higher power or as a kind of guidance. And I don't think that any of these are in contradiction.
Do you guys find like I was raised in Catholic back east in basically, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, where like you were almost known by your parish, if that makes sense. Like, oh, he's from Fatima. Oh, he's OLPH. Blah blah blah.
I'm OLPH, by the way.
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah, go Tigers. That's my church up here in Toronto.
Um, so I mean, there was basically no diversity in religion, and outside of, let's say, a few, like probably three nationalities, there was no diversity. Um, have you guys been raised in a similar environment where it was pretty sterile, like it was pretty, not very diverse, from a faith-based perspective and from a race-based perspective? Rob, what's your perspective on that?
Actually, it was pretty diverse. I mean, I've
Yeah.
known people of all faith-based systems and ethnicity-wise too. But I grew up in North
Even
Dakota.
when you were growing up?
Yeah, oh yeah, because it's like there's just a melting pot of people in school. So I mean, I was exposed to it, but there was never really, I never felt animosity towards any other religions or things to that effect. But I know that that's very common. So,
Yeah.
like, I had a Jewish friend, I had a Muslim or Islamic friend. Like, they were just, that was just part of it.
And did
Some of
you
your best
find
friends are no, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on a roll this morning. He has caffeine.
Can't be stopped.
Yeah. Struggle, Rob, I'm going to imagine that you have the same struggle of where I grew up. It was very much right, like you're either Roman Catholic or you're going to hell for sure. And I always struggle with that, and especially the older I got, and the more, I don't want to say intelligent I got because that sounds dismissive, but the more I learned about, right, like, other religions and other schools of thought, it just honestly didn't really make sense to me. It's like, well, everybody around me subscribes to this religion. Is that because they actually did the analysis and said, oh yeah, that's the right one? Or is it because that's what their parents were, and that's what their parents were, and that's what their parents' were, et cetera?
I mean, I definitely struggle with spirituality. I was raised devout Catholic, so I saw a lot of people who were very devout Catholic, and being that I wasn't as much, I kind of like was the oddball with a couple others. There was a couple of us who didn't subscribe to that notion, but I really did see a pattern of like parents that are Catholic, the kids that are Catholic. We called them the God Squad, or they called us the God Squad. We'd go on retreats and like, it would be like very feeling faith-based. And like, it's just one of those things that I really do wish, because I mean, you're well-read. There's a lot of books that believe spirituality is a big factor to success. I've noticed that in a lot of self-help books. So I've wanted to have that comfort, but it's just tougher for me to feel as if that's potentially what's out there. Like, I guess I don't necessarily know that I believe in God, even though I would like to. But it does seem very family based. My mom is Catholic. I must have skipped a generation, but her parents were Catholic.
Ray, how about you?
Yeah, I'm in a similar situation where, as Rob is, where I feel a void or like an emptiness in my life. Like part of the program that we have here in Rhomas involves like movement exercise, involves meditation, which like and for me, and meditation kind of like butts up against the spiritual life, right? Because you're going into the interior, you're going into things unseen, and I agree with Rob that I haven't read the books, but I believe that a spiritual life, so how I experience a spiritual life in terms of AA and recovery from drugs and alcohol is like um, when the addict tries to take the wheel and make all the decisions, he ends up in the gutter or the plane crashes into the mountain. So and the addict isolates himself, right? So spirituality, the way I'm experiencing it presently, is like taking the decision-making process out of my hands and putting it into a higher power. Not that God decides whether I have Cheerios or Captain Crunch this morning, but just in the things that really I struggle with, and that like I would potentially make an impulsive decision based on rage or anger or embarrassment or kind of humiliation. We put those things in our higher power's hands, and and so we can think about it rather than just react instinctively, right? We can respond rather than react. And so again, like I haven't read the books, but I'm giving, and like Rob said, like I want to have a spiritual life. I want to have a connection with the higher power. For me, that's Jesus right now. For others, that can be the universe or Mother Nature or Gaia or just the kind of communal energy of all living things. It doesn't matter to me what your belief is, like your belief system is. I just think like life is richer when we have that.
Ray, in AA, if you don't mind me asking,
Yep.
is it similar to the Freemasons that you just have to believe in something bigger than yourself, or must you believe in God to be part of
No, it's just it's like, so I think maybe when AA started in the 30s, it was a bunch of middle class or better white guys, and they all had a shared Judeo-Christian faith identity. So I think the language was God, and they were probably thinking of God on a cloud throne up in heaven, right? But the language has since been changed in a lot of 12-step recovery programs to your higher power as you understand it, right? So again, it doesn't have to be Jesus, doesn't have to be God. It can be, right, the flying spaghetti monster. It can be Gaia, Mother Earth, whatever it is, as long as it's you're not crushed by the need to make all of the decisions on your own.
Got it. Phil, I'd love to hear your voice in this, bud.
My parents my dad is a recovered alcoholic, so he talks about God in kind of a very boomer way where he clearly doesn't care or think or follow God's rules in any way, but he talks about God randomly once a month or something. That's the only exposure I've ever had to God. My parents are not religious. We didn't go to church. So I literally never thought about God at all until I was like 18. I randomly got really, really into the atheism versus God debates type of stuff on YouTube. Like I got really obsessed with it for some reason. Now I just know all the arguments now. But now that I've gotten older, like, it's weird because in the 2000s, atheism got very, very like trendy for a very short amount of time. And I feel like anyone who has a little bit of self-awareness now realizes it's not cool to be like, yeah, you're stupid because you're Christian. It's like pretty like embarrassing to be that way. Although I don't believe in God, but like, since then I've learned a few arguments that at least make you. I think you get a one-sided. It's more one-sided than you realize when you're only watching God debates. Because you can argue for the existence of God, but that doesn't necessarily. Well, whatever. Anyways, I don't want to get into it, but I don't believe in God, but I think, like, I don't believe in a Christian God, and I don't believe in a specific God, but I think spirituality. I think atheism is very, very young, and I think if we keep going for another few hundred years, I think atheism could be very deep in a spiritual sense. And I think that's I feel sort of like it's unfortunate that atheism is so young, because when religious people point out that atheism is kind of in spiritual sense, atheism is very kind of superficial. I think that's true, because it is superficial because it's very young and it's very immature right now. It's kind of just like the idea that like, if we can't know something because science proves it, then we just have to ignore that at all as a possibility. That's kind of a stupid way of thinking, because there's most things we don't know. I hope I'm coming through. My internet's coming through. Most things we don't know. There's probably a billion things that we all kind of sort of know are sort of true just from experience that we can't prove. And that doesn't mean you should jump to like the supernatural. I think that's where it gets kind of pointless to like start presuming you do know the supernatural stuff. I think that's a little bit unnecessary, but like anyways, my point is like, I think spirituality is very important, and I feel very spiritual in ways, and I think I think because, religion has been the dominant force for so long, there's no such thing as non-religious spirituality in any deep way. It's very like, people just believe whatever. If they don't believe in God, they just believe like crystals can speak to you and whatever random bullshit, because it's not like a substantial philosophy in any way. And I think it should be, because I think spirituality is extremely, to me, I guess I'll try to stop rambling after this, but to me,
No, dude, keep going. Dude, you're doing great. Keep going.
To me, spirituality is religion and atheism, they're all the same thing. It's spirituality is, I don't know how to explain it, but spirituality is like a deep faith, and I don't mean faith in, well, it's hard to explain, but a deep faith in like, I don't know, the connections that mankind has made and will make and can make. It's like belief in yourself, or belief in, I don't know how to explain it, but spirituality is extremely important. Like at a basic thing, like, the whole like law of attraction is bullshit in the sense that like thinking you're a millionaire and then doing nothing else is not going to make you a millionaire. But believing in yourself is extremely important, and believing that you are like, so okay, so I'll just end with this, but like I think it's the natural conclusion a lot of atheists come to is like, oh, nothing matters, the end. And that's idiotic, but because a lot of people seem to react that way, that like, well, nothing matters, I can do whatever I want, and who cares or whatever. But the real thing is like, I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but like the real thing is like, if you want to do something really big, you kind of need to have a certain amount of faith in it. You kind of need to have like, you need to like believe that you can do things that sound crazy, that sound impossible. And that belief is part of, I don't know, it's kind of part of the act of doing it, And I don't want to like fake it. And I don't think there's a way in which you can fake it by being, and then there's a way that's not faking it. That's the best I can do to explain it. There's a way in which I think that you can have faith that's not faking it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
Well, that's why, Phil, that's why I was using the term spirituality. MFG, thank you for being the typewriter police. Yes, Rob is writing his manifesto on a like vintage Corona typewriter with that tack, 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 tack.
It's the bombest keyboard. It is cool, but I was typing in the chat. Sorry, guys.
I know you were. No, it's all good, babe. Just, familiarize yourself with the mute function, as we say in online AA meetings. MFG, like, what is your take on like religion versus spirituality, and just like or any other entry point you want to make in this conversation?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was raised Catholic, went to CCD, went through all that, confirmed in church and all that jazz. But it was interesting because as I was growing up, I really rejected the concept of God because of the circumstances of my own childhood. And I used to think like, well, this is bullshit. Why would fucking God put this? I didn't choose to be born into this situation. Like, what the fuck? And for years I really had like this chip on my shoulder, and to the point that like people would, later in life say like, oh, thank God. I'm like, fuck God, thank me. I'm the one that did the work. You know what I mean? Like I had this very
I get that a lot in my house.
Yeah. And it's and the interesting thing is that I've become more spiritual as I've gotten older, but through learning experientially. So I had to make the case for myself. So I don't really believe in adopting any type of dogma. religious, cultural, or otherwise, and just kind of following suit. But what I found for myself is that, and I believe it's, Jordan Peterson has talked about it, but if you act like there's a God, your behavior patterns and it will serve you better anyways. And who
Yeah.
cares if you're right? And furthermore, it's when you look at the core concepts and remove the cultural connotations and the dogma from all the different religions, if you were to lay them, as a Venn diagram, the overlap of all religions is so much more overwhelming than the slight differences. So when people nowadays adopt this degree of atheism and materialistic science from the standpoint of, well, I can prove it, so it's real, it's like, hey, that's great. But when you realize that religions have continued throughout time, you know what I mean? Through the written word, through the spoken word, across different languages, cultures, time frames, and they're still mostly the same concepts. Maybe that's something we should at least pay attention to and not be so quick to dismiss based on, oh, there's not some bearded guy in the sky. It's like, okay. I mean, I think a lot of those arguments are intentionally dismissive based on, what you can and can't prove. But if, I don't know. I mean, if you look at the majority of people over a long enough period of time and see the value that people can take from religion, but be mindful not to fall into what you consider to be a trap of like, whatever, compliance or just following the bouncing ball. But like, why would you want to have to go reinvent the wheel? Why not just learn from things that have been proven through time to be lasting concepts that have provided value, that have been so worthwhile that people have handed it down from one generation, and take what you can from it. And what you don't agree with, I guess, just leave, but I find that there's more to take from it than there is to push away from it.
Amen to
Mike,
all
do
that,
you
dude.
do you find that the arguments exist primarily on the edges, right? Like, hey, in the Bible on this page in that verse, blah blah blah. Like, do you agree with this? Yes or no? And they tend to be like these like pretty divisive types of things versus like what you're saying is, hey, at the core of it, probably I'm wrong about this, but probably most people would agree with the core tenets of a lot of these, let's say the handful of the major religions, and we can continue on with our day without having to argue on the fringes.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, I just don't give a fuck enough about those arguments. You know what I mean? It's like those gotcha arguments or the, oh,
Right.
well, how do you know? It's like, all right, dude, cool. Yeah, great. Me personally, sure, man, you know it all. It's just like, when it's like when you meet somebody who thinks that they know everything about whatever the task is that you're doing. And I can sit there and argue with them and tell them why I know more and why this is the way, or I can just go, all right, cool, and just wait for them to swing back around. You know what I mean? And then they'll be like, hey, man, I don't know how to do this. Okay, great. So I would just rather, and I don't, who gives a fuck what anybody else thinks? Like, why do I have to worry about if Wes is agrees with what I believe in my fucking head? And by the way, that doesn't mean that even has to be a layer between Wes and I, because I don't have to believe everything that you do in order to believe that you provide value and that you're a great friend and all those things. So it's like, I think that sometimes people want to focus on the minutia and the details because it gives them the illusion of control. Well, I can wrap my head around this and I can shrink my world to this, and then if you don't agree with me, then I can write you off instead of actually having to engage and integrating thought.
I think it might be cool to take a quick poll right now because I almost put it in the category of politics or, you know, your wife or your girlfriend, where like the arguments probably happen in the hypothetical, like intellectual debates rather than the real life practical scenarios. So, for instance, like the girlfriend who like just randomly during dinner will be like, okay, if I was hanging off a ledge and your mom was hanging off a ledge and you only had one hand, right, to help, right? Like right now, in front of everybody, who would you help? That
I'd
sort of thing.
spank the monkey and let you
break
both
up
fall
over
to
this
your
argument.
death.
Yeah. So I wonder if like religion is a very, very similar thing of like, if in the absence of maybe having a discussion like this that could, let's say, turn heated, we would have never been in that territory in the real world ever. But if you're going to force us to get down to like the third decimal of what we believe, Ray, let me throw it over to you. What's your perspective on that dynamic?
Yeah, man, those are like loyalty tests, right?
Oh, dude, every
And
fucking week, man.
yeah, dude. Again, like I'd rather just adjust my comb over and let them both fall to their death, right? Use that hand. Is that an option? Just like I'm like, do I have full coverage here? Okay, bye guys. No, but I think what like what MFG said really resonated with me and reminded me of an important lesson that I need to keep right on at my fingertips, which is like look for similarities instead of differences, right? And so if I'm going to apply it to your hypothetical, it's like the person asking you for that loyalty test is looking for differences. Like, do you love me more than you love her? Like, is your allegiance to me greater than it is to her? Whereas what would be the similarities approach? Like, I love you both, and I'm going to do my best to make time for you both, right? When it comes to like other drivers, like it can disarm road rage, right? Where it's like someone cuts you off or someone cuts off someone else. It's typically someone cuts off someone else, and I'm like, look at that asshole, right? And then if I can just think of like the similarities, not differences approach, I'll be like, oh, I'm probably guilty of doing that, or if I just do a survey of my own driving that day, I've probably done that, right? And so, and I guess, look, if I'm asking for the similarities instead of differences approach, do I ever seek loyalty oaths from people in a similar way, right? Do I get caught up in that in a similar way? And I'm sure I do, where I get kind of jealous that mommy loves my brother Frank more than me, or if I find out that mommy's helping out my brother Frank, I get furious, even though she helps me out just as much, right? So like I say look for similarities instead of differences, and uh, that's what comes to mind.
Rob, has differences in religious views ever gotten in the way of a friendship for you? Like, has it ever actually come up outside of forcing like an intellectual debate?
Um, so definitely have had debates where I feel like no matter what I say, I'm going to be an asshole. And it's like, I thought that you were supposed to be understanding and receptive to everybody's viewpoint, but I haven't necessarily experienced that in my life. I feel like a lot of the times it's like, oh, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. But then I'm like, well, what about other religions that don't have the exposure to your religion? Are they just going to hell? And I think that that has caused to have some issues in my life. But I do agree with everybody, especially Mike. I think Judeo-Christian values are pretty good. I've had a girlfriend one time when we were discussing what our wants and needs were, and she had mentioned that she wanted to have a Christian-based family, and I agreed to it because I do think Judeo-Christian values are great. But I also told her I don't know that I can commit the way that you want, and we were able to overcome that. But there have been points of time where there's a lot of contention. You know how it goes. Like religion and politics are very contested.
Radioactive
And
subjects.
yeah, and it's like I'm a debater by nature. I can also shake it off. Like I can completely disagree with somebody. It might even get a little hot, and like I'm not immune to having emotions too, but I can put it to bed. And I do notice, especially with Christianity, because that's what I'm mostly exposed to, a lot of the answers I receive to real problems are answers that I don't believe to be real answers. And that kind of sometimes gets upsetting, and I don't relate to those people. So it's like, hey, what are we going to do about this? Like, well, God's got us. And I'm like, okay, but what are we going to do about this? It's in God's hands. And it's like, well, now I don't know that I can really relate to that person anymore because now I'm trying to solve this problem. And I wish I had that level of commitment to spirituality. But I feel like in my life, the way that I solve problems is by thinking about it internally and not, or delegating it to someone that I trust, right? Like the men's group or Wes or people that I trust, not necessarily to like a spiritual figure. And I think people do get upset with that, that I don't have the same level of commitment to their comfort and knowing that it's in God's hands, you know? And I've seen other people's religions get in the way of their friendship. And I'm like, but you guys agree on like 99% of shit. But because you're Jewish and you're Christian, now you can't be friends anymore. And it seems like, to me, it seems almost a little bit destructive.
Well, Rob,
Rob,
when I joined this group
please.
3 years ago, I was a total news junkie, just like a voracious appetite for like news. And when Wes said like he doesn't watch the news, like it was kind of confusing to me because he has such an appetite for information, right? And his quest for wisdom. But life has been so much better since I checked out of like the Greyhound race of who's doing what in Washington, right? And then even global geopolitical affairs that you might think are consequential are actually not to the meaningful steps I need to take in my life. So I think the same is true for religion in a way, right? Where what other people do and think, like MFG said, what other people do and think, I do not have to take a side on that issue, and so for example, I couldn't tell you, like, I don't even, like, I could name one cabinet official in the U.S. government. Like, I know Anthony Blinken is the Secretary of State. I don't know what any of the other ones, like, and that's a good thing because I don't need to know what the Secretary of Commerce is saying. I need to make that room in my head for more important stuff to me personally. So yeah.
I mean,
and so like,
Rob,
go ahead. Go ahead, Rob, then Mike.
One more quick anecdote, because I have met a Jewish guy in college who was a rabbi, and him and I had outstanding conversations, and there was so much wisdom I learned from him, and I really found a new respect for the faith of Judaism. So like, it does go both ways. I don't want to come across as like someone that's totally anti-religion, because this individual who was a rabbi, whom like we lived in the same dorm, dude, we'd have great conversations, and he bestowed a lot of wisdom. So just to kind of go on the other side of that argument too, I do see the benefits of it.
Yeah.
Both ways.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, no worries. I wanted to make a comment on what you had said about when you'd worked with people and they would, say, it's in God's hands. You know what I mean? It's, God's got us, and you.
I'm absolved of any accountability or responsibility here. Is kind of how Rob heard
yeah,
it.
like you with U.S. politics, right? Stay in Canada. So, so you said that you had a hard time relating to that and how you could, we're not having the same worldview, because you said your concept of it is to, sit there and consider all your options intellectually, look at what you can do. Well, they're doing the same thing, but they're doing the same thing and then leaning upon their faith in something larger than themselves to say, all right, well, I've already considered what I can consider. Here are our options. Here's what we can do. I got to now let go. You know what I mean? Because it's almost a degree of acceptance, not that there's somebody that's going to just, Jesus not going to come down and take the fucking wheel. You know what I mean? But it's, letting go and almost to the idea, Rob, that I think one of the major things about religion that is universal that I've found is that it's so much more about accepting how little actual control we have as individuals, in the scope of our lives. We have a lot of control in certain areas, but there's way more that's outside of our control. So the idea of that creating a divide between you and someone else And I hear that a lot when people try to be dismissive of people that have some type of faith or religious belief, as though that can't coexist with intellectual capacity. And I found it
But
to be the exact opposite.
do you think there's a spectrum though? Because I feel like what you're talking about is the rational Christian, which I'm not trying to suggest Christianity is irrational, but there are some people who I know exactly what you're talking about, and I respect that. It's like, hey, we deliberated, we did what we can. I trust in God, and I'm like, okay, good. I respect that. But if it's like somebody who's like, I don't know, it's in God's hands. It's like, well, then you can never really resolve anything because there's just,
Yeah.
you know what
But
I
at
mean?
the
It's like a
same at
spectrum.
the same time, before I'm fucking listening to somebody else's advice, I'm stepping back and looking at the whole picture. And if somebody is that much of a dipshit, I'm probably not going to put too much weight on anything they say, religious or otherwise. You know?
So I think
I
that
It's a
can
this
good
see
is
that
point.
there
this
being
is
a difference between the driver and the car for sure. Sorry, Phil, go ahead, please.
So this is part of the problem for me with since like for me like I literally have never had any relationship with God. Like I can't it's kind of hard for me to imagine what when people speak in religious ways, I kind of have to translate in this like I feel like I'm autistic. Like I have to like do this translation like conscious in my head being like what so that means because like I don't really know what it feels like to think that there is a God, right? So that it's very difficult it's the thing is like especially I mean I'm sure all cultures are this way but especially Western culture like our language is so biblically based it's like we're completely everything we say is based on the Bible like every meaningful phrase we have goes back to the Bible pretty much so when you say things like even saying like spiritual it's like what that really means like historically is you have a soul right and I don't think that. So like the thing is like I think the meaning there is we mean the same thing. It's just one person believes it's supernatural and I don't. But that's kind of a small like we were saying before. That's kind of one of the smaller differences. Some people who think that that's very important will say that's not a small difference. But I think in terms of the belief, it's the same thing. We're both believing in the same thing. I think everyone believes in souls. It's just some people think they're supernatural and some people don't, right? And sure, you can get all metaphysical and be like, well, the soul exists after you're dead, and I know that, and that's a very big difference. But like, okay, well, if we actually break down the characteristics that make up a soul, I think everyone kind of believes similar things, which is like, humans have an enduring spirit that's very important to them. They have a core that really matters to them, and they have whatever all this stuff. So like, a lot of people believe that, but we have this huge like language problem. Like, I think what you guys were just saying, it sounds like to me like Rob is saying sometimes. Well, what Mike was saying is that sometimes when religious people say, it's in God's hands, they're saying the same thing anyone would say. They're saying there's nothing else I can do about it. I've already tried. I've done everything I can. There's nothing else I can do about it. But sometimes, and this is kind of Rob's problem, maybe is sometimes people say there's nothing I can do about it when there is things they can do about it. And they're saying, I don't really want to try anymore about this, or this is too stressful or whatever. And it's like, well, there clearly are things you could do about it. Right. And I think that disconnect is a very big problem in society. And there, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll stop ranting there, I guess. But like,
No, I thought that was
there is a
outstanding,
big
man.
disconnect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
another
no, I
great
think
contribution, man. And Wes, I'd like to hear
absolutely.
Arjuna's take on whatever entry point he wants in this conversation. Go for it, dude.
There we go. Unmuted. I mean, yeah, being born into like Hare Krishna philosophy, obviously I can talk spirituality all day. But I just wanted
And dude,
to
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Jenna. Can you teach me what that is? I feel
Krishna
like such a monkey.
consciousness.
Any
So
of
it's
it.
like there's Buddhism, which is kind of like a younger, more respected branch of Hinduism. Hinduism's older. Hinduism has all these different there's so many different sects and that you can worship different deities, you can worship the personal and impersonal aspect of God. So it's kind of interesting. So like there's like different deities, like I mean, like we all know Ganesh, the elephant god, and Ganesh really just represents being the remover of obstacles. So you could spend your whole life worshiping Ganesh and then just getting obstacles out of your way. And then there's like Lakshmi, which is the goddess of splendor and good fortune. So she essentially just represents money. And so it's like the impersonal form of God. So the idea being that you could live your entire life just growing monetary abundance and all of these things in this universe. But if you're doing it with the intention, you're still doing it spiritually because you're recognizing that the impersonal aspect is just the material aspect, which is like the thing that we can all comprehend as material beings. Whereas really outside of that, the impersonal is like the unfathomable, like the energy that's beyond our ego, the thing that we can only kind of idealize, but we can't really tangibly connect with.
Got it. Okay. And then you were raised, what? Sorry.
I can't hear you. Whoa.
Testing.
And so can you get specific on the Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
That you grew up in and what that looked like and felt like for
So with
for a kid?
that was more like, that's more with Krishna specifically. Krishna is one of all of these different deities. And so that has more to do with like bhakti yoga, which is a certain form of yoga. So we all think about yoga as like this form of movement, whereas bhakti yoga is like living your life in an active practice of meditation. So like you're constantly within this connection of whatever the creator is, whatever you want to. And like you were saying, Ray, it's like, call it whatever the fuck you want. Like whatever gets you to allow yourself to make that true unified connection and appreciate that all of this is being provided for you rather than being like having this mentality of control. So it's more like,
and I think first of all, I love that we're getting a Hindu / Hare Krishna contribution here because that just adds to the mosaic that of spirituality that we're assembling. And yeah, I think, and Arjuna, I agree that like you can use whatever metaphor you want, but like I'm not satisfied with feeling just like a random marble rolling around a much larger marble, which is the earth. You know what I mean? And just kind of like chaotically. So like I love the idea of God. I love the connection into a millennia old faith tradition, which, you know, the Catholic Church is, which Judaism is, which Hinduism certainly is, and the Muslim faith is. And so just like even if you take out the God part, just being part of a team, like as we talk about on this podcast so much, being part of a community of shared values, having something to do where you go and sit in a room with people. I don't know about Hare Krishna. I mean, I see them banging and wailing away at the airport, but like in my church, it's active, but it's mostly just 90% sitting in a room and being quiet, right? And I think that pays dividends for me and my mental health. So like,
Arjuna.
Yeah.
Oh, please go ahead, buddy. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the one thing one of the big things I wanted to bring up, because I mean, it's like Mike was saying too, it's like there's so much, but you take what works for you. I mean, my dad was the teacher of a Gurukula school, and he was like raping kids and stuff. So if like anyone had the ability, or if anyone had the desire to justify rejecting the Krishna consciousness because of that, like I could have very easily been like, well, that's a cult and there's abusers and this and that. But I still recognize that there's lots of really good stuff in that I still like. And anyways, one thing I wanted to say that's really one of my biggest truths that came through that is like, at the end of the day, we don't know what the fuck is going on. So we just have our individual set of coping mechanisms. And so we call that religion. We call it whatever we want. Really, at the end of the day, is just coping mechanisms that allow us to try and accept what's getting thrown at us in this just chaos that's going on all the time, and we have no the fuck idea what's going on. And
I agree with like the take what works for you and leave the rest behind, because like I hear your personal story and that's crazy, but like the Catholic Church is the New York Yankees of raping children, like 26 World Series rings, like indisputable champs. And so so I hear you, dude, that like there are just as many arguments for not pursuing any given religion.
And I think it has to be that way.
It probably always was.
I think it has to be that way because like there's part of our ego, there's part of fear where we're like, you know what, fuck that, fuck these bunch of pervs, and then we kind of rob ourselves.
Or these weird like believing in magic, like fake fake magic nonsense, kind of like fairy tale nonsense, right? Like there's all kinds of different ways you can challenge it.
Well, but the one thing I wanted to say in regards to the coping mechanisms is like one thing that really resonated with me in regards to Krishna consciousness is it talks about how there's all these different universe, like an unfathomable amount of universes. And right now we're just in the one that is this material universe. Material universe is five senses. It's material energy. We're all exclusively connected to material energy and we're like stuck in it, right? And so the idea being that like that's called Brahman or Brahma. And so Brahma is the material universe. It's defined as the material universe, and it's also defined as defined as the divine playwright. So essentially, us as we're all one singular material energy broken down into trillions of fragments, just enacting a drama. So that's literally everything. We're just living in a drama. So that's the one thing, right? And then there's Vishnu and then Shiva. And so Vishnu is the creator and Shiva is the destroyer. And so for me, my set of coping mechanisms that works the best in my life is just holding on to those three things. And just like, so if I'm seeing rape or I'm hearing about genocide or all these things, I'm like, well, that's just the energy of Shiva. Like there's just the destruction, the creation, and then there's us just enacting it. And if you get outside of your ego and you're like, well, but that's my mom or this or that, and you just look at it on this bigger picture, then it allows you to kind of accept everything. And it's obviously easier said than done. But like to me, that's the ultimate. Like I hold on to that set to allow me to accept anything.
Awesome contribution, dude.
That's pretty
Thank you.
And Ryan's comment in the comments was hilarious. So I think what we're demonstrating here, guys, in my personal view, is
the destroyer of worlds.
Yeah. There are certain organizations that literally take politics and religion off the table out of the gate. Like if you were to talk about it, you are not allowed to be part of the group. Like when I was a Freemason, that was part of the agreement. Like you do not talk about religion and politics in the meetings or else you're not allowed to participate. What we're demonstrating here is you can absolutely have a thoughtful discussion that's trying to make progress on your own belief systems and understand other people's belief systems. So, and Arjuna, I really like the idea of, hey, if you're expecting a dog not to bark, the dog's not wrong, right? Like you are wrong. Like there is a certain amount of chaos in the world. That's just chaos being chaos. There's a certain amount of good in the world. That's just good being good. And how are you? That's the triad, right? You said like basically like bad, good, and you. And it's just this play, the exchange of drama between that triad. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, we're just kind of living it. And it's really up to us how we want to be part of it. Either way, it's happening. It was happening before we were born. It's going to be happening after we're dead.
MFG, any perspective on any of the stuff since you last commented?
Yeah, I forgot to mention it, but I don't know if anybody's actually been around a real atheist. Like somebody who actually doesn't believe in a God. Like a lot of people say that, but growing up, my father was a complete atheist. He when he came back from Vietnam, he never took communion again. Just let me become Catholic and made me go to CCD. But I mean, he was an atheist all the way to the point when he was on his deathbed. I remember asking him the day that he died beforehand, being like, you change your mind, you think there's something else after this? He goes, no, the lights go out. And
damn. That reminds me of a joke.
No. Hold on, guys.
Yeah.
Because everybody thinks that sounds so fucking cool, right? Like,
right. It's like Clint Eastwood or something.
No. Yeah, it sounds great, right? But I saw the man for 25 fucking years, okay, not be able to get out of his own way because he couldn't believe in anything bigger than himself. And that's what held him back to a degree because he couldn't put faith, like Arjuna was saying, in the creation, destruction, in the triad of the melodrama. He believed that he was in control and that he had to impose his will. And he failed at it. You know what I mean? And to not have that belief or the acceptance of what is maybe a better way to put it. Acceptance that we all exist within this chaotic soup, and that we have to just navigate our way through it, as opposed to thinking that we can control it. And that was really interesting. And the older that I get and look at, how he lived his life as a cautionary tale, you know what I mean, of where the limitations lie, with that type of thing, even though within our culture, because that was everybody's the first thing. Oh, wow, what a badass. Da, da, da. It's like, wow, how sad is that to not have faith in anything other than yourself? Even because if you can't have faith in I mean, you can't even have faith in other people at that point. If you can't have faith in something bigger than yourself, then you look at everybody like, well, they must be like me, and I can't have faith in myself. So the world gets pretty fucking bleak. So
MFG, is there a possibility of a belief system that, hey, while I'm here, I'm part of this like interconnectedness, and I've got to play my role because of that connective tissue between all of like the nodes.
I think so.
And I want to influence that in that positive way. So did your father, if you don't mind me asking, did he not believe in that interconnectedness? Like everybody's just kind of, bumping into each other, but we're all autonomous units. Like what was that? What was his perspective? What would be, I guess, be your guess of his perspective?
His perspective, I mean, one thing, even when I would go to CCD, I remember he'd send me out the door and just be like, hey, ask him, there's 2,500 major religions. Ask him how they know this one is right. You know what I mean? So he believed in the universality of things, but, for him, it just, the idea of a higher power of any kind was, because of what he had done in war, he couldn't believe that a higher power could exist. But he saw the value in, integrity and character and things of that nature. So it wasn't as though he was a complete nihilist.
Yeah, well, it was up until this point, MFG, that I thought you and I were friends. But knowing that you're part of CCD, you fuckers would come in and mess with my pencils. I had my desk and my pencils always the same way, because CCD kids would come in after school on Mondays and always disorganize my desk. It used to make me furious.
Yeah, because I was one of the poor kids, Wesley. No, my parents made just enough money that I didn't qualify for financial aid to go to the fucking Catholic school, so to go to public schools and go
That's really
to fucking St. Mary's on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, because I was under that line, I was able to go. But you had your revenge on me, sir. You still owe me a few pencils. Phil, I have a feeling you've got some good stuff to say about this.
Oh yeah, like the thing is, okay, so look, so I mean, just to say it really simply and hopefully not ramble too much, like my problem with religion is basically just dogma, in the sense that like dogma, the thing is like dogma is very good. Dogma gets a bad rap these days. People say dogma is like, a cult and people believe nonsense or whatever. But no, like dogma is just, this is a belief and you're not allowed to question it. If you're going to question it, I'm going to tell you to shut the fuck up. That's what dogma is, right? It's like, this is our belief. That's not inherently bad, because, the whole saying about like, don't tear down a fence until you know what its purpose is, right? Like that's the good side of dogma, is like, you're young, you don't know, you're not 1,000 years old. Our tradition is thousands of years old. You're not. You don't know why we do these things, so just believe it and shut up if you don't like it, right? So that's the good side. Well, that's the neutral side. That's good and bad, right? The bad side is the things that come out of dogma that we can kind of we're almost sure are not great actions that come out of those beliefs. But the good side is all the good that comes out of those beliefs, right? Like a lot of Western civilization seems to be based in Christian values, right? Maybe not all of it. People argue about how much America is based on Christian values, whatever. It's at least some of it is based on Christian values, and those things are good and bad, but largely seem to be very, very good. And the thing is, like, I don't believe in a God, and I don't really want to, but the problem with that is I don't think humans are meant to believe in. It's very hard to say, because when you say nothing, I want to go on an hour-long rant. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean an atheist doesn't believe in nothing. That's not true, but like, whatever. The thing is, like, narratives are very important to people. Like, so this is the thing. All right, to say it simply, I guess I could say what religion is in a basic sense is an enormous social gravitational force. It pulls you together, right? Because even if you just have, if you think of it, if you have a group of 100 people and all those people believe in the same values, that's not necessarily going to keep them like together and continue to believe those values in the long term. Because values, I think of, I don't know how to explain it. Values are just like properties of how you can act, but that like religion, the narrative of religion that God literally existed, and God, if you don't do these things, you're going to be punished, and if you do these things, you'll be rewarded. That is the gravity that pulls people towards each other. And I think that that's what is missing from secular society, is that we, even though I think you can be a very good person when you're secular, it's the long term. It's over the course of multiple lifespans and over the course of civilizational time spans, when it seems like without a religion pulling people, does it make the direction I'm going in make any sense right now? Like, people can be good, but you can still be good while you're slowly drifting apart. And there needs to be this glue that holds people together. And societally, I think that glue, it needs to be a very strong force to keep people together, because people just naturally will drift. And my point is basically, I think, to me, I don't really like the downsides of dogma. They really suck when people do shitty stuff because they believe in things. But not having dogma has a lot of downsides that I think atheists don't really like to talk about. The drift of like the cultural drift. Like, yeah, I don't know.
I absolutely love that, dude. I absolutely love what you said.
Just the last thing I'll say is, like, I think like culture is the hardest technology. We have metal, we made tools, now we have computers and we have rockets. We're really good that we have those technologies, but culture, we haven't figured out shit about how to build culture, right? You can build culture. It's a tool. That's the way I see it. It's a tool just like everything else, but we have no idea how to build it, right? And we think of it in this metaphysical way where it's like this supernatural thing, because we have no idea how you build culture. And it's really important. And we can't just be like, well, everyone can make up their own mind, because it's really fucking dangerous to do that long term. And I think, I don't know, I've always wanted to try to figure out how to answer some of these questions. I have no idea how to start, but I think they're really important.
Dude, another outstanding contribution, man, because like it's obvious that like religion or being part of a faith community is a community. It's a team, right? You go together and sit in a room, but like why is that valuable? And I think you nailed it. That it's like it is a medicine against isolation, right? And the art world, the music scene, sports teams, they perform a similar, a more modest function, but like the force against people drifting and isolating, I think, is like a very important function of religion and faith and spirituality. And what I love about spirituality is that like my urge to isolate and get high, or just isolate and escape, is like the value of having a God or a relationship with God or a higher power or the universe or whatever you want to call it, is that you are never alone. Like, you are never isolated. If you are like, you can step into the river of life and be immersed in it. And that's my final thought, Wes.
Like,
Hell yeah, Rob. Phil, please.
Just to say really quickly, like, the thing is, like, about narratives, like, well, I don't know. I'm not gonna make any sense with this, but like, it works in big ways and small ways. Like, there's, a couple random like Discord servers I'm in that are like really, really cool places. And there's a couple I'm in that are like nothing ever really happens and people just kind of babble about whatever. And the places that are cool, there's like a shared, really deep love. Like, this is totally random, but there's this one server I'm in where people love Eastern European cars, like a very specific kind of cars, right? And we're all
Yugos
just like,
or Ladas or something.
Yeah, like a bunch of them, like
Event.
whatever. So people in there just really really love these cars, and it's like I'm not trying to say that it's like believing in God, but it's a similar, it's on the same spectrum. I feel like it's they have a specific purpose for why we're here. We have a specific purpose for why we come here, and it's a gravity that pulls us back. We're not just posting about cars and if you just have the whole category of I like cars, then people are just posting like generic cool beauty shots of Porsches, and it's like, what the fuck are we? Who cares? Like,
Yeah, Rob, like it's meaningless, dude.
I should have said
Porsches.
So the
Just listen.
Anyway,
Listen
that's my whole.
Sorry, I'm trying to.
I've obviously drank way too much coffee by now, but like the gravity is really important, and I don't know how to answer. I don't know how to figure that part out, but we need gravity, and I feel like gravity is what's missing from society right now. That's why there's no community right now, because there's not enough gravity pulling us into places like this. This place is, it's incredible.
Thank you.
Because
Thank you, Phil. And no, I could totally understand like the strength of the adhesive is the X factor. That's at least that's what I'm taking away from what you're saying, or like one of the pieces. And another big takeaway that I'm walking away with is I love Arjuna's contribution of, that's just, I'm so sorry, Arjuna, that's just Vishnu. Is that what he said?
Vishnu. So Vishnu is the creator and Shiva is the destroyer. So all the bad things,
just Vishnu.
Okay, Shiva.
Yeah. I like the concept of like, well, that is predictable because that exists in the world, rather than this naive like, oh my gosh, that where did this come from? Like it's the first time it's ever happened. So that was the big takeaway for me. Rob, final thoughts, man. Any takeaways for you, brother?
Well, I mean, I think Phil said a lot of good things about community, and like I do think that religion provides a lot of good community for a lot of different people. Like I have friends who that's their friend group, and I think that Christianity and I guess Judeo-Christian values, because I don't really know as much about Islam, are great. I think that there's lots of pros to it. So I think that sense of community is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. FG, final words, buddy.
Yeah, man, I think Phil hit the nail on the head. You know what I mean? Like religion can be a narrative, and it can be an empowering narrative that you can share with other people in a way that can carry you through the times when you're having doubt in your own self. You know what I mean? It's just like an empowering narrative to adopt, regardless of circumstances, because you can see it in others. When you're at your down point, you can see how it's working for others, and that's it's just a useful way to frame the world.
Yeah, hell yeah. Arjuna, final words, buddy.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you your flowers. I had a chat with my mom the other day, and this is kind of a good poetic contrast of exactly everything we're talking about. She's drinking the Kool-Aid with Al-Anon, and my sister's drinking the Kool-Aid with Landmark. And so unless you're come from those angles, then like you don't understand. And so it's been really nice to bring this group up to my mom. And the first time in decades of actually her not getting triggered about like me challenging her relationship with Al-Anon as like the end all be all, the way to God, if you will. And to be able to bring in all of those things that Ray, you bring in, Wes, you bring in, we're bringing all of these things in to create this. And it's really fucking cool. And I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I appreciate your contribution as always, my friend. Seriously. Thank you. Ray, I think you had something to say, bud.
No, I'm just Phil's trolling me in the comments, and Phil and Rob just got to cool off with their Porsche supremacy. Like there's no Porsches in heaven, boys. They're all down below. All right. Thank you guys for an outstanding contribution. And Phil and Arjuna, you guys really taught me a lot. And Mike, I didn't get anything from Rob or Phil or Wes, but you three gentlemen taught me a lot today. So thank you. You guys have a great and blessed Easter, Passover, Ramadan weekend, and let's do this all again on Monday. What do you say, boys?
All right.
Phil, any nail in the coffin you want to put for Ray? I'll give you the last shot here.
Oh yeah, Ray,
like,
Ray, get up on that comedy stage, dude. You're gonna be a millionaire in a couple of years, dude. Just get up on the stage, man. Hey,
Yeah, and buy some of my art, Ray, for Christ's sake.
Or sell some of his
Fucking
art.
man. Do something with it.
No.
Is somebody muting me? By the way, is somebody muting me from thank you
Sorry.
guys.
I fucking wish you would.
Hey, so someone's got to do it. Hey,
Easy.
I said you want to call for like, yeah. Oh, so I was wanting to listen in. What happened?
no, I
Just go
think
quiet?
I don't know what that was. I think this place is freaking cool as hell, and I appreciate being here. I really appreciate you, Wes, for keeping this place going. Pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I
Wes.
appreciate you,
it's
buddy.
not without effort, man. I
Literally
really
doing the
appreciate it.
Lord's work.
You're welcome, boys.
You guys, it's all of us circling on a triangle, but seriously, especially Phil and MFG, that means a lot coming from you guys. So thank you, dude, so much. You guys have a great fucking weekend. Love you all. Later.
Peace.